So the weather seems to be flyable. Not so much on the other side. That means we need to fly that direction.
Look at.
Welcome to the Paramotor Adventure Stories. It's a full guide to paramotor adventure flying, and here we are back again with our guest Jean Francois, a super experienced adventure pilot. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Jean Francois, we went through a few topics. What would be the one today? Yeah, how dangerous is paramotor adventure flying? So we talked about skills and experience needed last time. Now, how to start if you are a beginner. I myself, when I started, I was a complete beginner. I didn't think so, but I did. I did start as a beginner.
I'm laughing because what we can say do not start like us, correct? That's not a smart idea to start it. Like, go on straight to the big thing.
What was your very first paramotor adventure?
700 miles unsupported.
Unsupported, all alone. Same with me. So all alone, unsupported. That is the most risky and the most dangerous way of doing
the most extreme. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. As you said, I wouldn't recommend to start my or your way. Dear pilots, please learn from our mistakes and do the proper way, which is progressive overload. So I would suggest to start something that with the easiest way of doing adventure flying, that is guided road trips. That means you fly in a group, you have a guide and experienced pilot to come with you. You do road trips, that means you take off and land on the same spot, so especially the landing, at least at landing you're familiar with the spot already, and you don't carry the stuff with you.
Yeah, and if you don't feel too comfortable, stay near a road, even if it's still an adventure trip, but you don't have to.
So on all our trips so far, we had one or two pilots that were beginners, and they skipped a few flights. If the flights were too demanding, talking about nil wind takeoffs, high elevation, early morning, wet glider, variables, switching winds, he just stayed on the ground, but they stayed safe. So if we are talking about how dangerous flying is, so it's not dangerous if you stay on the ground, if it's beyond your skills. But still, they skipped one flight but had another 7 amazing flights, so the overall adventure was awesome.
Yeah, during the Rio Grande trip, we got one guy, and he came with his instructor from Nebraska.
How cool is that?
And he was going to be part of the driving flying crew, but at the end he's the one that flew the most. He flew more than his instructor, and he did some amazing trip, and for him every day was a new adventure, following us, feeling safe because he was part of the group, but we still went to places where, again, following a road kind of a mile away or 2 miles away, because we're following the Rio Grande, and it was very, very extremely positive for him. He just learned so much. So much. He felt so confident at the end.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have, for example, Csaba from Budapest. He went with us for 5 trips already. Although he's not a beginner, but he's mostly flying in Hungary, which is completely flat, so he has very little experience in flying the mountains and understanding the weather in the mountains. Every trip, he just comes to me and, hey Miro, I learned so much, and this is the best way to learn. So you have a guide, you have a group to fly with, so you observe what others are doing, how they evaluate the weather and so on, and you just absorb all the information. So just like you said on the Rio Grande.
Yeah, feeling so much safer, and because of it you just want to try a little bit harder, which is true. Yeah, in the Rio Grande the guy did very good because his first launch, I think his first launch was at 7,500 feet back there, when usually he flies in Nebraska was only 800 feet. Elevation.
That makes a big difference. Guided group flying, let's call it a road trip, so not cross country yet, would be the thing to start with. And then you said the Rio Grande trip, which was kind of guided group flying. cross country,
Cross
but
country
support
because
it.
it is the right way to do it. Be in a group. I do agree that it just gives you a lot more confidence on pushing it a little bit more.
Yeah,
and if the group push it more, well, you kind of keep going with the group because you feel safer. You know somebody is watching you from above. Or from
And you're
side.
watching the others. So I remember the
Exactly.
trip to Italy. Again, guys who have zero experience flying the mountains, and we were flying into the Alps. And the guy said, "Oh, is it actually possible to fly there? I mean, there's snow up there." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Is it safe?" I said, "Okay, follow me 500 meters behind me, and if you see me shaking and start turning around because it's turbulent. But if you see me flying nice, just follow me because the weather and the conditions are nice." So this way, you following a group, you can get to places where you probably wouldn't dare to fly
Do
alone
on your own.
as a beginner or
Yeah,
as
yeah,
an unexperienced
yeah, totally.
pilot. So the weather seems to be flyable. Not so much on the other side. That means we need to fly that direction.
Come and look at.
So that was the road trips, guided group. Then we had the next progression would be guided group flying, but cross country with supports. Then the next progression would be at some load.
Had some load being supported,
Unsupported.
but keep it very simple.
And keep it in a
And-
group.
And it could be, to a start, just a 1 day trip. You could start early in the morning, go as far as you can, bring your oil, refill some gas. In the evening, just go back home. You could do that. That's already a big adventure. That will give you 200K in 1 day, which is already a lot for most pilots.
Or, well, that involves midday flying.
Well, not really. You can fly in the morning for 2.5 hours, and you do what 3
Yeah,
hours.
yes,
you
you
could
could
do that. And if you don't make it back in the evening because you started too late or you have a bad weather pattern, well, you just find a place to camp. Not to camp, sorry, I take it back. A place to find a little hotel.
That camping isn't a problem.
Yeah, but if you want to do little and don't carry too much weight, in that case you carry your oil, you carry some food, and you carry some spare parts, some tools, but you don't have to carry a tent. You're still following a valley, for example, and you go and you land somewhere, get your gas and come back. If you have an issue, you can stay in a hotel somewhere. That's the adventure.
Yeah.
That's already a nice day as a beginner.
Yeah.
And you go 2 or 3 friends, perfect, bingo. Now you make it a great day.
Yeah.
Something to talk about, and you see it all over Facebook.
And then the final progression, although that's not in the beginner category for sure, it's flying alone. Unsupported.
And for 2 or 3 days.
And for 2 or 3 or 8 days, like Icarus Trophy. Yeah, so that's definitely not something to start with. But then again, I believe that it's not that dangerous in general if you fly over, let's call it something I call civilized area. So flying here in Central Europe, in Slovakia, you basically have a city or a little town or a village every 10 kilometers. So even if you have a emergency landing, then you're so close to someone who can help you. What's the worst case scenario? Because we are talking about how dangerous adventure flying is. Have you had anything gone wrong so badly on your trips?
I got my cholo cable that broke once.
So an emergency landing.
So that's emergency landing.
Yeah.
And that's something going wrong, which is engine out that you cannot restart. So now you have to figure
Yeah.
out a way to manage it, and hopefully you're high enough and close to a road like that, high enough like that you can find a place to land. And
Well, this can happen regardless whether you're an adventure flying or not.
to
Keep
anybody.
altitude and fly over areas that you can land safely. Now, landing safely is a thing that during the adventures I did or we do, we kind of push the limits of what is still considering landing safely. So normally when you fly, landing safely is okay, landing there with no damage to you and the gear, and you can call someone to pick you up. On the trips we do, landing safely, we kind of push the limit a little bit further. Landing safely for me means you may get a little hurt, but you stay alive. This is the question, how far you accept the limits or the risk. So flying a little canyon, I mean, yeah, I'm there. I mean, I need to fly through it. It's a must.
It's the must. It's part of.
And the canyon at the bottom is too narrow, and there are some trees. But I know I'm gonna survive. Maybe I'll stay stuck on the tree, and maybe the extraction will take one day, and maybe I'll damage the paramotor. But then it's part of the adventure. As long as I can walk away from it, I accept that. So pilots who start adventure flying, I think they will start a bit more cautious, fly higher altitude and so on. And later they realize that, hey, it depends on your motor, but if you didn't have the engine out for the last 2 years, so you kind of start to trust the motor a little bit more.
And take a little more risk by being low.
But again, stay alive. Breaking the motor is part of the adventure, the risk, times the likelihood. Likelihood is low.
I personally, during most of my trip except the Rio Grande, mainly because I was alone and I didn't go low.
Yeah.
I stayed to the altitude that felt safe, but it's not about even safety, it's about speed. I was mainly looking for speed. So if it took me 6,000 feet, I was 6,000 feet. And comfort, because flying all day long. So I didn't feel that I went to too many places being a risk of really hurting myself, but I've been to a lot of places where it was like, ooh, if I go down, are they going to find me? Meaning, how long is it going to take? Only a helicopter can get me because I'm way too far from any construction or any roads. Sometimes it's like I should not be there, but I did. If you go and you fly at 40, 50 miles an hour and you are an hour flying from any road, that's a lot of miles. 40, 50 miles away.
But is it dangerous?
Oh, it's not dangerous. You just go, exactly. So you're not dangerous. That was my side of the risk.
It will be costly, and it will take a long time to get you out.
Yes.
But it's not, as long as it's not dangerous, is flying over water. Dangerous is flying over places where you can't land safely in case of an engine out. So the rocks are too spiky, or I don't know.
And I
mean, flying over glaciers in Iceland, I was like, all these little deep, these massive deep cracks, like 10 meters deep. I mean, if you land there, I mean, there's probably, you can't land, you can't swoop, you can't, it's just like this deep, 10 meters.
Yeah, you just land.
So those are dangerous places, or canyons. But remote places are just expensive if you need to pay 10,000 for a helicopter.
I do agree. So is it dangerous at the end? Not that much, unless you really go to extreme places, as you were talking about, glacier, which is very dangerous. Most of the time, a beginner adventurer can do a long trip and again stay near a road, being like only 2 or 3 or 4 miles, and still be going around mountains, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good start, but if you are in a group, you can dare a bit more.
Yes.
For example, in Iceland, within 40 minutes, we fly to places that it takes 12 hours to get there by car. So I tell to the participants on the trip that, okay, if an emergency landing on an evening flight, it may very easily happen that we will pick you up the next day, because I need to come back, find someone with a special SUV or all-terrain vehicle, or maybe a helicopter. It will be night, so we'll come and pick you up in the morning. But you will survive. You will not be comfortable to stay overnight out there in the wilderness, but there are no bears. So you will survive.
So as long as you survive, it's not dangerous.
Yes, guys.
That's what
go
you're
for
saying.
it. Yes, yes, that's what I'm saying. As long as you
not the way
survive,
people
it's only
will
a
take
question of money and little patience.
Yes, exactly.
So money and patience doesn't count in the danger zone in my perspective, because the likelihood is small. But if it comes about surviving, you don't care about likelihood. Even if the likelihood is very small, you don't want to take the risk of not surviving that place.
You are easier than I am. That would be a little bit tougher on me. I would say that dangerous is also losing your expensive motor, losing your wing, breaking a foot, it's all of the above. And then just the idea of only surviving is good. But I will hope for better than that.
So to summarize this chapter, how dangerous paramotor flying is, I honestly believe it is not, if you start the right way. And if you expose yourself to risks that you can handle. That means you start with guided group flying, so you can have others give you advice in judgment on the weather and the conditions and so on. Then you take on to cross-country flying, support it. The next level would be take a little luggage, maybe for a short trip or a long trip, then you need more luggage. That means it adds a little bit more demanding takeoffs and landings. And the final thing is basically the Icarus Trophy and similar adventures, where you are all alone. But that's the final stage, kind of.
Yep, I do agree with all of the above.
Yeah.
The only thing is that if you are flying with some friends, don't be the one crashing because you're going to damage their trip. They will have to wait for you for a day or so.
Yeah, they will have to wait for
It's part of the adventure.
You know, they will have a cool story to tell.
Exactly, it's part of the adventure.
As last time we discussed that the best adventure happens on the ground. And the best adventure, even for the others, to tell when they come back home and sit in a pub with their friends and tell cool stories about the last week, it won't be the best pictures that you took in flight. It would be, hey, you remember Jean Francois crashing there and we had to pick him up, so we got a farmer and a dirt bike, and I don't know, someone flew over, dropped a bottle of water so he can kind of survive for the extraction. That will be a cool story.
I remember that. I remember my friend, I'm not going to say her name, he will recognize himself, but during the Rio Grande, they had an engine out, an engine problem that could not be restarted. And I'm not going to explain any detail, but he went down, and it took us 6 hours to find him, and we used the border patrol came and helped us, and they found him.
Okay.
And next day, helicopter came to pick up his equipment. That was the only way. It was just lost out of nowhere. Luckily they were the road not too far. But
how much was the bill for the helicopter?
I think it was $1,800, something like that. $1,800.
Okay, it's worth it.
It was not very far from something, but it was far from everything. So it was good. It was very good. It was a story.
Yeah.
We kind of laugh about it. He didn't hurt himself, which was very amazing.
So guys, thank you very much for watching. This was the next chapter of the Paramotor Adventure Stories, which is a complete guide to paramotor adventures. And the next topic that we will do is an interesting one. We finally get to a kind of a section, how to plan the adventure. And the first topic will be how to find the most attractive places and spots to fly. Stay with us, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like, share. Thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.